present the equations in that form, because obviously this is for kind of primary school children or early secondary school children. So what I did was I presented kind of a thought experiment where it's worked out, well, if we want to predict in the future what the population of either the hare or the lynx is, what are the factors that are going to influence that, and just kept it really simple and kind of presented a discrete form of the Lotka-Volterra equations. And you can see in figure 3 the way that I presented it in the article. So like really simply, the formula to calculate the future amount of hares is just equal to the current amount plus the change in population minus the amount of hares eaten. And it was really, the kind of goal is to prove to these students that kind of like equations that they would consider to be complex can be broken down into just pluses and minuses with a little bit of multiplication in terms of the rates of change. But, you know, like the relation, the growth rate is just the amount of births minus the amount of deaths. So it's all really simple, and it's put in a way that they can truly kind of understand. So then the model had to be kind of fit to the data and created. So I used 2 open source Python packages, PyCindy and SimFit. They're both quite different, but for the kind of terms of this project, like they're both linear regression packages. So, and the fact that the data was, it was so easy to get estimates for the parameters from the data, they both provided really reasonable and similar fits. Also kind of presented to the kids that, the different limitations of modeling and how these equations can be extended to include other factors. So obviously this model assumes that it's a closed ecosystem with just one predator and prey interacting, but the data itself is actually from the hunted animals. So it obviously negates itself in that way, but you know, it's such a small amount of the population that it doesn't really affect it too much. So then there's just another animation of the model itself solved. And yeah, just to give you a little bit of background as to my own research and how this kind of links into it. So I'm working on modeling multi-sensory decision-making processes at both neuronal and behavioral levels in people with movement disorders, such as Parkinson's disease. So like the predator-prey model, my model will be informed by real-world data. It'll be electrophysiology data, and it will consist of not necessarily nonlinear equations, possibly linear partial differential equations. There's a couple of different ones that I'm looking at, such as the Fokker-Planck. And yeah, I'm going to be using open source Python packages as well, instead of creating something novel. There's really good ones out there. And the model itself that I'll be using will be the drift diffusion model for modeling just decision times with upper and lower bounds. And yeah, so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Great. Well done, Rebecca. Turned out to be a presentation, but well done anyway. It's a really nice poster. I have a question. Just wondering, have you presented this to any 10 to 15 year olds? Have you had the chance to present it?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So the end goal is to get it kind of published in Frontiers for Young Minds. This is a really cool open source journal where the editors are actually kids.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they give you feedback and then it gets hopefully published. My supervisor is an editor on it, so that's how I kind of found out about that. But hopefully, what I was hoping to do was to go around to schools and kind of introduce this in, because a lot of schools are teaching their students Python now, but it's kind of given them, the context of mathematics and linking those two classes together, because for a lot of school age kids, like maths is just this kind of abstract thing, and this kind of gives it a bit of context. But no, I'm hoping to do that whenever the situation is allowed again.
I was going to ask a similar question. Did you present it yet? But yeah, because I'd be interested to see, like, how children will be able to interpret the Lotka-Volterra equations without getting scared off. That might even scare off their teacher if that thing. But like the other picture you had down there, if they could get some kind of sense of what the parameters mean or something like that, it'd be good to get feedback on that. I know that wasn't really a question, but yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, so obviously it is an outreach project. And the equation, breaking down the equation part is really, I think it will be very effective in that respect. But for me, it was kind of educational as well, because as I say, like tying it back to my own research, it's going to follow kind of a similar pattern, but obviously on a much bigger scale, and to do with neuroscience as well. But it was just kind of, okay, well, what packages are out there? How do I go about modeling this? And it was a nice educational kind of project for myself as well.